An old shopkeeper tells a customer about a legend and a sacred sword that became a curse for its owner centuries ago. The great warrior Kim Shin fell victim to a treacherous plot, and when he was executed, the universe malfunctioned and the warrior turned into a Dokubai demon who gained eternal immortality. Only the bride can see the invisible sword sticking out of the warrior's heart, and when she obtains it, the demon will find peace in the world of the dead. But for nearly 1,000 years, the demon Kim has roamed the earth, hoping to meet a girl who could set him free. After finishing the story, the old woman advises the girl to pray when she is on the verge of life and death, but the customer does not understand what the woman is telling her. Kim Shin goes through different periods and tries to help people. He recalls his military past, in which he was not always able to save his loved ones during a coup. The cruel king destroyed his favorite girl right in front of the warrior. For several days now, Kim Shin continues to travel the land, waiting for a demon bride. While walking through the city, he meets his eternal rival, the Grim Reaper, a guide to the world of the dead who heals souls with tea before sending them to paradise. In order not to arouse the suspicion of ordinary mortals, Kim Shin has to constantly change his residence, and this time he rents a large house in the center of Seoul. The owner of the house, an old man who has known the demon for years, introduces him to his grandson and warns the boy that his new friend will never grow old and will spend many years together. Looking at the boy, Kim Shin remembers his ancestor, his mentor from long ago, who swore to the demon that all his descendants would serve him faithfully until the demon bride freed the boy's soul. Kim Shin left his native country with his first officer. Their journey was dangerous and long, but the demon managed to protect himself and the boy with a sacred sword. One day, while sitting on the roof and thinking about his difficult fate, Kim Shin accidentally witnesses an accident. According to the rules, the demon should not interfere in the fate of people, but when he noticed that the injured girl was pregnant and heard her prayers, he brought her back to life. When the Grim Reaper comes for his victim, he finds only footprints. The guy notices that despite the snow, flowers are blooming near the accident site and guesses that a demon has intervened. He vows to find the victims and restore balance by escorting them to paradise. A few months later, a girl is born who is destined to die in an accident. A birthmark appears on her shoulder, indicating that she is a demon bride. 8 years later, on her birthday, Jae Yoon-tak learns that her mother has died, and thanks to the girl's ability to see ghosts, they are able to say goodbye. From that day on, the young demon bride must be strong, but she does not yet know that she will now be pursued by Death, who is about to take the girl to heaven. The angel of death finds Yoon-tak, but she is saved by an old merchant and Reaper promises to return later. The old woman advises the girl to move in with her evil relatives so she can hide from the Death Eater. After listening to the merchant, Jae Yoon-tak manages to survive another 10 years hiding from the angel. He keeps seeing ghosts and everyone thinks he's crazy, so he tries to avoid talking to ghosts. One day, Yoon-tak meets Kim Shin on the street and recognizes her as his destined bride. All evening, the demon thinks about the unexpected meeting, but his thoughts are interrupted by an old assistant who gives Kim Shin documents to move to another country so that people do not suspect something bad. Looking at the ageless neighbor, the demon plans to move without joy, afraid of losing his destiny and worried about the young assistant who gives the old man a lot of trouble. Unlike her friend, Jae Yoon-tak doesn't have time to think about their meeting because she has no time to rest because she is serving the evil relatives she has been living with all these years. On her 18th birthday, Jae Yoon-tak skips school and heads to the seaside to relax. For the first time since her mother's death, the girl decides to blow out the candles and make a wish, at which point an unknown force makes the demon move to the pier with a bouquet of flowers for the birthday girl. Kim Shin doesn't understand how the girl managed to summon him, but he admits that he heard all her wishes and she should prepare because soon she will say goodbye to evil relatives, find a good job and meet a boyfriend. At home, Demon unexpectedly encounters the Grim Reaper in the living room. It turns out that the young assistant has already rented him a house and expects Kim Shin to leave soon. The old rivals are at loggerheads and neither is willing to give up. As night falls, it is clear that Demon and Reaper will have to share a house together despite their long-standing enmity. The next day, Jae Yoon-tak walks around the city looking for a job, but seems to have been tricked by the demon. Everywhere she goes, she is rejected. The power of thought summons Kim Shin again, but the girl cannot explain to her friend how she does it. Yoon-tak summons Kim Shin again and again, guessing that she must be just making a wish, but the girl gets a new surprise when she grabs her friend's hand, being burned by blue fire. The demon tries to understand her strange friend, and she confesses that she has been called the demon bride by the spirits since childhood. She shows her friend the birthmark on her shoulder, but when he asks her to prove her abilities, Yoon-tak won't tell him that she can see the sword. Kim Shin tries to escape her annoying boyfriend, but manages to follow him through a space passage and ends up in Canada, where the young people have a great day together. While walking through a romantic city, Yoon-tak begins to think that she has fallen in love with a new acquaintance and will one day become his wife. While the demon spends time with Jae Yoon-tak, the Grim Reaper meets with the secretary of the Celestial Office, hoping to gain permission to take the girl to another world. After taking over the secretary's file, the Angel of Death meets new clients, the same man who ran over Jae Yoon-tak's mother years ago. The demon leaves the girl at the hotel and visits the cemetery for which he appeared in Canada. It contains all the descendants of the old man who accompanied Kim Shin during his long life. The boy remembers trying to draw his sword and end his torment, but it was impossible without the demon's fiancée. Unable to stay alone for a minute, Yoon-tak finds a friend in a graveyard. She sees a picture of a demon on the monument, which makes the girl guess that Kim Shin has been alive for a long time. The couple returns to Seoul and Yoon-tak prepares for her hard, ordinary life. She faces problems at school and Canada seems like a distant dream. The demon tries to understand how an ordinary girl could go through the magical passage with him, not realizing that Jae Yoon-tak is still haunted by miracles in the school bathroom. Waiting for her is an old businesswoman who has aged 30 years and turned into a radiant beauty. A stranger gives a schoolgirl a bag of spinach and asks her to eat it at home with her family. As usual, the family greets the girl with reproaches and insults, but the spinach rolls silence them all. To avoid hearing the angry relatives, Yoon-tak goes outside and her mood improves when Kim Shin appears nearby. Jae Yoon-tak's wishes begin to come true. The next day the girl gets a job at a cafe and her boss offers her to start today. To share her joy, Yoon-tak summons the demon and he decides to choose his best outfit so that he won't appear in pajamas in front of his girlfriend. This amuses the Grim Reaper and he doesn't miss an opportunity to poke fun at his rival. The demon's sad mood causes heavy rain in the city, and the rain saddens boss Yoon-tak, so she goes to the card lady, who promises her a quick meeting with the man in the black hat. Just then, the Grim Reaper decides to take his hat to the dry cleaners, as without it he becomes visible to mere mortals. But on the way to the dry cleaners, the Angel of Death meets Jae Yoon-tak, the girl he has been looking for many years. The Reaper is happy that no one else can protect his victim and he finally restores justice. But Kim Shin comes to the girl's aid and tells his friend that his victim is the demon's bride and he cannot take her away. As the Reaper leaves, Kim Shin tells the girl that he lied to his friend. She's not the demon's bride because she doesn't see in him what a real bride would. The demon asks her friend not to get used to him as he will soon leave to continue his search for the mysterious stranger, and the couple part, barely holding back tears. Yoon-tak doesn't see her new boyfriend for a few days and hopes to forget about him. Kim Shin suffers as well, bringing more and more dark clouds over the city and causing a thunderstorm. His nephew and Reaper come to the demon's aid, and after listening to their advice, Kim Shin sets out to find Jae Yoon-tak. At his friend's house, the demon meets the Angel of Death, who is also determined to find his victim, but the girl's room turns out to be empty. None of the guys guess that Yoon-tak moved to work because she didn't want to meet more strange friends. Unable to sleep, she decides to seek advice from the spirits that have haunted her for years. The lost souls tell the girl the truth about her birth and that she is the real bride of a demon who listens to their conversation. Kim Shin decides not to interfere in Yoon-tak's life anymore, but the girl gets into trouble because of her relatives. She is taken by dangerous creditors into the woods to find out where her mother's large death insurance policy is hidden. Yoon-tak is unable to call her friend for help, but still senses that his fiancée is in danger, and he and Reaper come to her rescue. The gangsters try to escape the strange guys, but the demon cuts their car with a sword and frees the girlfriend. The gangsters are saved by Yoon-tak. The girl demands that the demon keep the criminals alive and they are punished according to the law. The company returns to town and the demon invites Jae Yoon-tak to dinner, but the couple again fails to speak softly, and the girl runs away. Despite her boyfriend's bad mood, the demon continues to help her. Now he decides to teach Yoon-tak's relatives a lesson using magic. The guy throws gold bars at them, forcing the bad guys to guard each other's loot. To make it more convenient for him to watch the madmen, the demon goes to a cafe where he sees a young artist on the TV screen, an exact copy of his enemy from the past. He asks Sek to avenge him, but the Angel of Death has other plans. He has to go to the hospital for an emergency doctor. Meanwhile, Yoon-tak drives around town and remembers the happy times she spent with the demon. Kim Shin can't forget his friend either, and the pair continue to suffer together. After regretting getting rid of the Canadian paper, Yoon Tak returns to the store and looks for it among the books. The girl manages to return the souvenirs and finds a new friend with them. She meets the demon's nephew, who bought the book and her talisman. Kim Shin tells the chairman about his grandson's machinations, and the old man becomes nervous about the heir's behavior. After receiving her first paycheck, Yoon Tak buys food but accidentally burns it on the fire. By blowing out the smoke, he inadvertently summons a demon, much to his delight. The young people start arguing again over the fact that the girl cannot be a demon's bride. To discuss it further, Kim Shin takes her girlfriend to a cafe, but she doesn't say a word about the sword, and the demon seems to think there's no chance. Reaper joins the conversation and tries to force Yoon Tak to see the blade in his friend's heart with his mind, but fails. To cheer himself up after his disappointment, Kim Shin makes several strangers fall in love with each other. Later, the demon admits that the two will be each other's punishment and it was his revenge for an old grudge. Yoon Tak tells her friend that if she can't be his fiancée, they should break up. But the girl cannot go far. A strange force keeps her close to the demon. Nephew Kim Shin guesses that the other friend is the angel of death. Grandpa kicks him out of the house for being too talkative. The young man decides to sell the building he was assigned, but the real estate agent refuses to help him and offers him a job. Demon and Reaper go to the store and Angel of Death tells his rival that he won't take Yoon Tak, hoping to see the sword and Kim Shin finally leave the mortal world. Hearing this, the demon admits that he is now at peace and plans to leave in 2 days. Kim Shin goes to Yoon Tak's house but gets angry again and the demon sadly leaves to pack his things. The shopkeeper appears again in the story. This time she decides to help the Reaper and offers him a jewel. The girl makes the Angel of Death fall in love with the cafe owner. For the first time in his life, the guy has the courage to meet a girl, although saying he finds his behavior strange. Saying he leaves a number for a strange stranger and sits by the phone all evening waiting for a call. Yoon Tak tries to comfort the landlady, but the girl has to leave to get her things. Her relatives took the deposit and cleared out the apartment. The girl remembers the demon's promises during their first meeting, but failures continue to fall on her head, both at home and at school. Yoon Tak no longer calls her lover and he becomes worried and complains to the Reaper about his unrequited love for a strange girl. Yoon Tak comes to the wharf to talk to her mother's spirit for advice. Just then, the rain stops above the girl's head, and when she turns around, she sees Kim Shin. The girl gives her friend her Canadian sheet, but the demon confesses that this is their last meeting and leaves. The Angel of Death and the demon are sad and expect their imminent separation, but an unexpected bell brings them back to reality. Both guys are surprised to see Yoon Tak on the doorstep, but the demon is even more surprised by her friend's confession that she saw the sword all along. After her confession, Yoon Tak waits for an explanation of what they will do now that it is clear that she is the demon's fiancée. But Kim Shin doesn't understand how he feels. Instead of being happy that his dream came true, he is afraid that death will send an angel to him. Yoon Tak notices his doubts and offers him his own option: move into a big house, have a baby and live happily ever after. The demon does not want to rush, but allows Jae Yoon Tak to move into their house, and the old man orders his grandson to fulfill all the demands of the new guest. The girl is happy to have her own room now, but the demon has to take medicine to survive the latest news. The Angel of Death joins his pal, and the chairman's grandson is at a loss as to what to do with the strange company, especially when the next morning they have new symptoms of depression and start fighting all the time. The chairman's grandson remembers meeting Yoon Tak at the bookstore on the way to school. He asks her about the fate of her relatives, but she does not know that her aunt is arrested by the police for reselling stolen gold. Despite the transfer, Yoon Tak still rarely sees the demon and therefore misses her a lot. Yoon Tak sits under the door, hoping her boyfriend will notice, but Kim Shin is busy meeting an old acquaintance to see him off. Yoon Tak eventually manages to summon the demon by blowing out dozens of candles and confesses that she kept quiet about the sword for fear that her fiancé would shun her. To make amends with her friend, Kim Shin invites her for a walk, but the guy has too much to drink and the walk turns out to be very fun and romantic. Demon is about to confess to Yoon Tak what will happen when he pulls out his sword, but he lacks the courage and instead the guy creates flowers in the middle of autumn. Still waiting for a call from a stranger, saying he puts on makeup and goes to the place where they first met. Beauty thinks about it so much that the Angel of Death sees her face in everyone. Yoon Tak has to listen to her classmates' taunts again, but this time her familiar ghosts stand behind her and her bullies have a hard time. Kim Shin takes her classmate in hopes of protecting her from bullies and ghosts. Kim Shin brings Jae Yoon Tak back to Canada and invites her to an expensive restaurant. There he is about to tell the girl the truth about the sword and his future, but instead the couple spends a beautiful day again. The demon not daring to spoil it with sad news, especially when he realizes that his first love has happened to him. With that, the season ends here.